Hello, everyone, and welcome back to This Week in Guns, brought to you by Patriot Patch Company, VZ Grips, MAF Corporation, and FFL Payments. This show offers commentary on the latest firearms industry news, information, and buzz. I'm your host, Matthew Rosier, and I'm joined today by the #1 Dark Souls speedrunner, Mr. Ivan the Troll. What is your trick?
It turns out if you don't level any of your skills but put intelligence to 99, they give you a rifle.
Oh, whoa. Now that's a new strat. Well, so yeah, it's been a minute, guys. Both of us have been very busy working together in a heterosexual way to get some big works done, and we're excited to share those with you soon. But yeah, I don't know. Anything you want to share with them, with the audience, before we get started?
I don't think there's anything massive. I guess opposed to last time that we were late, there wasn't as much big stuff that happened.
Right.
So you guys didn't miss too much, except for this the past week had much more that happened in it compared to the week before last.
Right. And we are on time with talking about that in particular. Yeah. So cutting straight into it, most recently we had a final summary judgment ruling in the case involving Maryland shall issue and Maryland's brew and response carry ban. Which is Novotny and Kipke v. Moore. There's been a lot of reporting on this where people are like, whoa, it is a big win. And in actuality, it's quite likely that this will wind up being appealed by both sides. And the reason is the actual result is just a permanent version of what we got in the preliminary injunction, right? So the motion for summary judgment is granted only to the extent that the Maryland law banned, like it was the vampire rule, right? Banning carry in any private dwelling without first being invited, carrying near public demonstrations or locations selling alcohol for on-site consumption, and then denied in all other respects. So then the government's cross motion for summary judgment is granted as to the 14th Amendment claims, as well as claims regarding state parks, mass transit facilities, schools and school grounds, museums, stadiums, healthcare facilities, government buildings, amusement parks, racetracks, and casinos. So that's not right. It's a win because the single most egregious thing about the law, right, has been declared unconstitutional, which was the vampire rule, right? And basically that says that if somebody isn't affirmatively, oh, please come in with your gun, right? You can't go in.
Right. It just bans public carry altogether is what it does. Yeah.
And we had created maps of the exclusionary zones, and it was like pretty nuts. Well, that was for the county bans, right? Which are even more absurd. But when you include all of these things and you get the geo data, you notice that almost nowhere, especially when it comes to parks, is safe. Because especially when you add, like in the county case, they added buffer zones around all these areas, and like the whole county was red. So the amount of stuff that summary judgment was granted on for the government here is completely unacceptable. But I do think it's like basically the court is here saying, oh, my hands are tied, whatever. And so I have to do this horrible thing and grant this, like, side with the right to carry to the most, well, not the most minimum, but like the least insane, right, way he can still restrict it. One thing that really scratches my thinker, overturning the ban on places you can drink alcohol, but not any of these other
casinos, right?
Right. Like, I don't know. This is strange. So it would go, the next step would be the Fourth Circuit, right? And we know how.
I do agree that whenever the headlines were all oh, this is huge, big news. I was like, wait, there was another New Jersey Bruin response case? Because I was reading through this one and I was like, well, this is just the injunction from not new, but there was another one that had an opinion that concurred with that injunction. That's oh wait, no, it's just the same case.
Yeah, no, it's Novani's injunction permanent now.
They're affirming what they already did, which, you know, frankly, didn't enjoin enough. And you know, the sort of excuse that I would have given the judge before is, well, they're only enjoining this much because it's at a preliminary stage. Once you've got all of the stuff briefed, there's not, like you pointed to, there's sort of fundamental similarities between places serving alcohol and like fairgrounds and casinos and these sorts of things. And in fact, like banning carry in parks and such, but not in bars, is sort of backwards.
Yeah, the parks is,
and so I think
highway rest areas, like
I think a lot of it is the judge realizing if they say it's all okay, right? All these restrictions can be okay, they'll get shit on. But if this way they're like, well, let's take the one thing that's obviously not going to survive the vampire rule, and then throw them two or three more crumbs and be like, I did Bruin, I did it really good, I did what I was supposed to. There's totally restrictions for these other ones, haha.
But so otherwise in Fourth Circuit news, we in the Adamiak case, that's the Navy sailor who was arrested and sentenced to 20 years in prison for having parts kits, cut up machine gun parts kits, which you can buy right anywhere. So the government finally filed their response. A lot of what was said was, you know, your standard boilerplate. Oh, no, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not. But interestingly, Adamiak was sentenced consecutively on so like possessing a machine gun without paying tax under 5861 and possession of a unregistered machine gun under 922-0. And those sentences were consecutive. Those were obviously the same crime, right? And so we had argued, we're like, you know, one of the many reasons you have to reverse is you cannot do both of them, much less consecutive, right? Which massively added on to his sentencing time. And the government straight up said, yeah, no, they're right. You should reverse one of them. So,
get the government to admit you're right challenge. Somehow the difficulty isn't impossible.
Yeah, no, I think it was like so obvious. And there was like 2 Fourth Circuit cases that I pointed to where it's like, you literally can't do this. Like, look, here's the languages. They're obviously the same. What's funny is the government's response makes a lot to do about saying, oh, well, it's still okay that he was charged with the entirety of the act, right? So basically what they did in that case was say in the indictment, the equivalent of saying he had a Schedule 1 substance, right? You can't say that. You have to say what Schedule 1 substance it was so that you can properly frame a defense to like say, no, it's not. It wasn't this. It didn't meet this part of the definition, you know, whatever. And they responded to that by listing a lot of cases that did specify what the actual firearm was charged and what its definition was. So that's, I don't know, I thought that was interesting. but yeah, so that's what's
interesting. It's an interesting glimpse into the inside of like how confusing the criminal court system can actually be from a standpoint of, you know, there's times that the government will be told straight up by the court, no, you actually have to specify what you're charging with. Sometimes the judge will be like, doesn't matter. You just charge them with anything, whatever. And just comes down to like, they're given an amount of discretion that like the defense needs to ask for something when in reality, you know, the law is kind of clear. The law sort of says this is how it should be. And then the judge has discretion to sort of ignore that unless it's asked for, which is kind of murky, but sort of an interesting thing to pick up on.
Yeah, so let me pull this up. There's a case from 1881 that talks about this, and it talks about like, you know, because the government's position is, oh, but we charged with the language of the statute, and the statute says machine gun, and so we just said it was a machine gun, and we said it was a destructive device, and so that's enough because it's the language of the statute. And so then again, there's an 1881 Supreme Court case that says that's fine. You can charge within the language of the statute if the language of the statute clearly and unambiguously states every element of the offense. They're like, there's in the like, so just in under machine gun, there's 6 definitions. All of them have different component parts. Yep. And under destructive device, there's like 8 at minimum, depending on how you read it. So it was just so fascinating because they state this point where, oh, we can just charge that it's a destructive device. Look, see, here's a case where we got away with it. And in that case, they charged a person with possessing a destructive device, namely an incendiary bomb. And if you look at the definitions under the statute, the elements of an incendiary bomb is like 3A1 incendiary, 2 bomb. Right? Like, right. That's the full set of elements. So it's like, that would be super unfair if that was allowed to go forth. Because if they just said he had a machine gun, right? Imagine if the government was able to say he had a machine, it was this was the machine gun, right? It's like, well, how was it a machine gun? It's read the statute. Then you can tell to the jury, well, so it could be a part, it could be a combination of parts, it could be a gun, it could be the frame and receiver of a gun, it could be a paper clip, really, as long as we can like bojangle it good. I don't think that's constitutionally sufficient notice. So that's something that's super concerning in that case. So keep an eye on that. That'll be very interesting going forward. Moving forward now, we got a New Jersey. It's just, oh my God. So yeah, there's a decision overturning New Jersey's ban on AR-15 rifles in the most
asterisk star asterisk star subtext, see bulletin 1 footnote 2 sort of way.
Yeah. So like the most, I was going to say soft cocked way.
Yeah, that also that
could have been done, where he like the judge is basically like, you know how some people you can hear like their cry talking, right? Like you can tell they're crying. This judge was cry writing. So let's read some of the excerpts of the opinion. It is hard to accept the Supreme Court's pronouncements that certain firearms policy choices are off the table when frequently radical individuals possess and use these same firearms for evil purposes. Where the Supreme Court has set for the law of our nation, as a lower court, I am bound to follow it. This principle, combined with the reckless inaction of our governmental leaders to address the mass shooting tragedy afflicting our nation, necessitates this court's decision. So he overturns a ban just on the rifles, but holds that a restriction on 10-round mags is somehow
just specifically on Colt manufactured AR-15s. Yeah,
specifically.
Which is a head scratcher. And like, I didn't dive into the whole opinion just because the whole thing was just making me roll my eyes too hard, and I was afraid I might like detach one of my eye nerve things. But as I was reading through it, it seemed to be his indication was because well, all of the briefing focused on AR-15s as paradigmatic of the assault weapons at issue here. So he's going to throw it out for Colt AR-15s because that's what was briefed or whatever. And I'm like, yeah,
that's a legal principle, sure.
I don't think you can do that. Oh, but sure, yeah, whatever. Apparently, he sees some meaningful.
Chad, stay winning.
He sees an honest constitutional distinction between a Colt manufactured AR-15 and one maybe made by Adamiak in Canada, or one made by BCM, or one made by Olympic, or any of the other companies that have been making AR-15s for a while. Not BCM necessarily there, but like right. Olympic has and Syndra has, and apparently there's a big constitutional difference or something he sees. I think that's real. And so I almost wonder if, I mean, you can tell there's a little bit of partisanship in his heart as he writes this. I almost wonder if he just says it's Colt AR-15 so he can be like, again, well, I followed Bruin. Meanwhile, he knows like, I'm not getting reversed. Look, because he knows once this gets appealed, and probably it's something that both sides again will want to appeal. He can be like, well, look, I think I got it pretty right, and it won't look bad for him. So in a way, it's kicking a can down the road where he knows that reading between the lines of what the Supreme Court have said is, yeah, it's all of these rifles need to be not regulated in this way.
Well, so at least there's one thing, right? The anti-gun people are intelligent enough to know that the M16 is an AR-15, right?
That's true.
Being that it covers the Colt AR-15, for too long, these weapons, which belong in a war zone rather than on a New Jersey street, have senselessly torn mothers, fathers, daughters, sons away from their loved ones. So that was a jab because we've been in constant Twitter battles for people who claim to be pro-gun, whose like whole job on Twitter is to be like, no, actually AR-15 civilian semi-glottomatic. It's like, no, you idiot. Like it was designed as a military rifle and you have the right to own it. Just shut up.
Every AR-15 that everybody wants to say, well, the AR stands for Armalite, libtard. You don't know nothing. And then you'll ask them, okay, so can you show me a picture of an AR-15 Armalite made? And they will never show you a picture because they look up a picture like AR-15 made by Armalite. Every AR-15 that Armalite, the company that designed it, not the one in Illinois that's now in Texas, not the one that's using the name today, but the company that actually designed it.
No, they will very often show you a Jalisco, Illinois, but then what is the M15?
Yeah, it's the the Eagle Arms Mark Westrom quote unquote Armalite M15. But
it's like no. Find one that says AR-15.
The actual Armalite that says AR-15 on it. Right. All of them are select fire.
Every single one of them is a machine gun.
That's how it was designed, and that's fine. And for whatever reason, gun culture wasn't mature enough at the time that the AR-15 debate sparked. That they weren't ready to embrace the idea of owning weapons of war like their forefathers had, and they were like, it was all this soft cock was for sporting, so it's different. So the terms have to be different now all of a sudden. So it's a sporting rifle for my hunt.
Modern swordsman.
My hunty shoot. They sort of like they completely arbitrarily divorced the terms, contradicting history in doing so, and I think in more ways than one that's shot modern pro-gun advocacy in the foot. Because these days owning NFA stuff is cool. People have suppressors. Suppressors have suppressor development for the longest part of its life was only aimed at military use, right? Like Maxim at the very beginning was like, oh, you can shoot it in your house or whatever. And then the NFA happened and there was no more civilian development of suppressors. It was gone.
Yeah, because all them Italians kept stealing the birds.
And so the development of that stopped, and then suppressors became like a very, very military centric thing. And then civilians start owning more of those, and they're like, well, it's for my hearing safety. And it does have hearing safety benefits, but at the end of the day, it's got something more than that in some use cases, like signature and flash reduction. At nighttime, that's important. And daytime, that's important. If you're shooting close to the ground when it's dusty, that's awfully important.
Oh my God, yeah, it's very annoying. It's very annoying. Getting all that dust in your mouth.
Pick up a bunch of dust, and then they know where you is. It's a two-way range in the tracers, and then like every muzzle blast is a tracer.
Every muzzle blast is a tracer. But you know what else has a lot of benefits outside of its ordinarily considered use?
Clock switch.
Easy grip. You got me. No, it's vzgrips.com, guys. VZ Grips they are the biggest grip custom cutter in the state of Florida, I promise. And they are also one of our greatest sponsors. You have to check them out. And we have the promotional code ThisWeek15. That's THISWEEK15, where you get a huge, massive, smoldering, throbbing 15% off of your order. And these are some of the best grips that you will ever find. If you put it in your mouth and chew, you are liable to break a tooth because they are so grippy. Spoken with experience, guys. I'm at the Clarence section just because I always like to do that. Oh, no, not the t-shirts. Yeah, no, let's look at, let's pick another random gun.
You know, while I think about it, I do kind of have a serious topic to bring up.
On VZ Grips?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've noticed that despite the numerous times that we've told our audience, heart to heart, that they have to go to VZ Grips, buy the grips, and in their order comments, their checkout, say, make Draco grips.
Yeah.
I have noticed that there are not Draco grips on vzgrips.com, and I'm just wondering if maybe our audience doesn't love us.
Do you think that they weren't listening?
It's possible. I feel betrayed. I feel
all rifle grips.
The only thing that will make it better is go use code on website and then in comments put, "Hey, make Draco grip."
Yeah.
Thanks.
That's important. It's really important. I didn't even think to check because I figured it would have been obvious that they did it. But yeah, that's upsetting. Also, if you want one with your little anime waifu on it, don't bother them about it. That annoys them. But order it. Send me a DM. If you join the Patreon, I will laser whatever stupid shit on. So that's another little bonus for you. But yeah, guys, vzgrips.com. Next up, Mr. Nicholas Rahimi killed Minnesota's under 21 carriage ban. Federal court rules. The federal appeals court ruled that Minnesota's ages 18 to 20 should be able to carry handguns in Publix under the Second Amendment. And that's why they posted this stock photo of a woman with a gun. But yeah, so it's interesting. Yeah, so like a rare, interesting decision out of the Eighth Circuit. Basically comes to the conclusion that Minnesota has not met its burden to proffer sufficient evidence to rebut the presumption that 18 to 21-year-olds seeking to carry handguns in public for self-defense are protected by the right to keep and bear arms. Yeah, it's so basically the government wasn't convincing in their Bruin analysis in, giving historical analogs, which would have to mean that the judge was just rejecting anything Civil War era.
Right.
Because there's a lot of handgun carry stuff there, which is right. I mean, I think the founding era is the only truly probatory or probative period when you're talking about a federal Second Amendment. Minnesota's Attorney General Keith Ellison, which is a bitch name, said in a statement to the Washington Post that he was extremely disappointed in the ruling. The state is deciding how to proceed. His statement said, but residents under 21 won't be allowed to apply for handguns until the appeals process has concluded. To get your handgun application. What
a great guy.
Yeah, there are some states where you have that, where you actually do have to get like a permit to get every handgun.
Yeah.
Can you imagine living in such a hell? Like, yeah. Sometimes I just like to go, therapeutically buy the other day I spent $50 on a Cobra. Now I have 400 Cobras. Next up, guys, this is a very interesting case. We've been talking about these PLCAA, Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, state laws, where basically the state law says advertising guns is a nuisance, right? Empowering people to try to sue gun manufacturers for negligent advertising or shit like that. And the federal government has won in a gun rights case in Virginia. That's right. Daniel Defense has prevailed in a lawsuit filed by victims of a school in Las Vegas that occurred using a government issued Daniel Defense rifle. So it actually wasn't under sovereign immunity, but basically flatly saying, guys, plaintiffs, like you still fail to escape the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, which is cool. So yeah, he said that the claims fail the proximate causation prong of the PLCAA's predicate exception, and their claims of negligence and negligence per se fare no better. It says far here. I don't know if it's an error in the
copy or the opinion.
The copy or the original opinion. But yeah. So yeah, basically the judge says PLCAA protects these people despite whatever the hell it is, stupid theory you're trying to advance under, right? Like an absurd idea that it is per se negligence to sell,
to advertise a gun that somebody could see the advertisement and think that's what the gun is okay to use for.
Right.
Like if you say, oh, this gun's in the Call of Duty, then that means that you should be able to Las Vegas and airport, which isn't true. It's not how advertising works at all. But PLCAA was relatively unexplored with regards to advertising specifically. Meanwhile, all through the later part of the 90s, like after PLCAA went into effect. I mean, the reason it went into effect is because of hardware specific cases where, you know, these anti-gunners would sue manufacturers saying you made the gun, and now you're negligent because you made the gun. And now they're saying, well, you're negligent because you made an advertisement that made somebody pick up the gun, which is, you know, is ridiculous. But this is the first case that I am familiar with, I'm aware of, where we now have sort of an answer to one of these lawsuits. There's like at least 6 or 7 more of these that exist, because, you know, Everytown and Giffords are just going around plaintiff hunting.
Why does he look like that?
I don't know, but he does.
Yeah, he do. Hey, looking like that. But yeah, so this is good news, especially in Virginia, which is not known for the best district judges. And I don't anticipate. This isn't something that I would anticipate like an activist Fourth Circuit overturning, because it's like pretty clearly protected by federal law. So I expect it'll stay. I don't know. What do you think?
I think that this is the logical conclusion of an honest application of PLCAA. The advertisement's got to be protected too, and, you know, to the extent that the advertising is not protected, saying, you know, Daniel Defense saying our gun was in Call of Duty, or saying like the fucking ad picture, right? It's the second most infamous gun ad now, right? You know, the first one is to consider your man card reissued, from Bushmaster, and now the second most infamous gun ad is the Daniel Defense one, where there's the dad pointing at the kid that's got like a little toddler that's got the gun in front of him, and he's like, teach him right, yeah, your Bible quote. And now all of the anti-gunners are like, oh my fucking God! They're doing the Soy Jack Impossible Burger point. And so you know, they're losing their minds over that one now. But, you know, to the extent that ad conveys anything that's not covered by PLCAA, it's not telling people to go do Las Vegas's. And I think Everytown and Giffords know this for a fact. I think they're totally well aware of the fact that PLCAA is probably going to protect this. But
I personally don't think that there's another candidate for that.
I don't think their goal is to necessarily try and sneak one of these lawsuits past PLCAA. I think their goal is to continually have them fail before the throne of PLCAA.
They can point and be like,
so if they ever get, you know, current vice president Kamala to become like the Obergruppenführer of the United States,
the Obergruppenführer,
they can have her pass down, you know, like, this is why we need to overturn PLCAA. There's been 65,000 lawsuits these groups have brought, and not a single one could pass because of radical gun laws where there's no civil liability whatsoever for gun companies. And it's not true, but they can be like 65,000 lawsuits that we've filed.
I do wonder if, like, at some point they can like fail under although they're probably smart enough to know that, like, that they'd be Rule 7 challenged, or like, you know, basically a challenge saying, you know, you can't do this. And what they'll do is they'll tighten the screw ever so slightly on one of their like tertiary common law negligence claims. Add a wrongful death element, or or like Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. Like you said it was 223, but it was actually a 556 chamber. It's like there's something, I don't know, like false advertising, Adamiak, I don't know. Maybe use their little pet gun company. Well, I know they don't watch our show because we're too edgy for them or whatever, but what if they use that little pet company that they acquired? What was it? The one with the plastic gun that sued KE Arms and all that shit.
Oh, GWAX.
Yeah, GWAX. What if they use GWAX's like little corpse and allege like a federal unfair competition or like or a state unfair competition analog and be like, we weren't able to get these sales because you are advertising to school shooters and we, like,
we want to do that.
Well, we didn't do it because that's unfair. So that's unfair competition. That would be really funny.
And so yeah, they've got a nearly.
Oh no, I think that might be able to carry the ball past summary judgment.
There's certainly certain parts of the country where it would, which is funny. But they can certainly get to their. You pointed out being they can get to their 65,000 lawsuits that they can prop up, and use the fact that they file junk lawsuits where they bridle the plaintiffs with significant attorney's fees whenever Everytown's like, we're out of here, not paying for that shit.
Later, skaters.
Bankrupt a bunch of grieving families so that they can then go and say, guys, look how bad Placa is. It bankrupted these families. Meanwhile, everybody's giving the side eye like,
oh wait, they did. I forgot, right? Yeah, they did do that. They just walked
more than just once because the contract. I mean, maybe they've changed it since this sort of became known, but I can remember even before that there was 2 cases where the contract that Everytown's lawyers have people sign is if we're not successful, you're paying for attorney's fees. Like
progress, baby.
You, the plaintiff, are paying for attorney's fees. We're a gun safety advocacy group, but we're not paying for that shit. Fuck that.
No, we got a work to do or something. Jesus, that's bad. That's brutal, and also funny.
Yeah.
So, guys, speaking about not paying for that shit, you should not be paying for rates that are too high. Okay, especially if you are doing e-commerce in firearms. So you need to go to fflpaymentprocessing.com. If you are in the gun industry at all, you need to go to FFL Payment Processing. It's by FFL for FFLs. They're not going to kick you off for what you do for a living. That's obvious. The FFL Payment Processing, guys, if you mention Fudbusters, you can get a free terminal. And if you're in any other business, you can go to the parent company, Centurion Tech Corporation, and do the same thing. Mention Fudbusters, you can get a free terminal and really, really great rates, guys. You're gonna love working with these people, I guarantee it. So go to fflpaymentprocessing.com. Next up, Ivan knows why. This is hard for me, and it's not hard for me because I don't think it's right. It's not hard for it's hard for me because I'm sick of the question. Let me invoke my armed scholar. Breaking, ATF, NFA destroyed, machine guns legalized, full stop. So yeah, that's what I would say if I had no journalistic integrity. What actually happened is a district court judge granted a motion for summary judgment in a forced reset trigger case, specifically involving the rare breed. This was run by Nagger, and good on them. God, I hate saying that.
The judge relied on the Cargill decision, which I think is super interesting.
It's super interesting. Well, it's also correct, right? But yeah. I don't hate that they won. I hate saying their acronym. But it's just terrible. But no, they did a good job. But this doesn't mean everything's cool. They're going to appeal it right away. I think there's going to be a longer line here before we have clarity in the not a machine gun items.
There's not a machine gun part 2, if you will.
Right. And I stand by what I said in my first video talking about the FRTs. I don't think they're machine guns. I think that this is correct. And frankly, I also stand by me and Ivan's analysis when we were reading the Cargill decision, that I think that the text of the Cargill decision really does pave the way for a lot of not a machine gun items. Okay. I just want to say that this is a district court judge. This is like level 1. This is a level 1 judge, right? Level 1. This isn't level 35 boss, right?
Level 1 robber, right?
level 1 crook agreeing, right, with the right side. We still have to go through level 35 boss and level 99,
Mafia
whatever.
boss.
Yeah.
Yakuza boss.
Yeah, level 99 Kazuma Kiryu. But so it's a great step. And also very interestingly, I like that, and this was unlike, my props to NAGR on their use of videos. Like, the use of videos and other media in litigation is brand new, because lawyers are way dumber than everyone else, and it takes us a lot longer to figure out how to like do things such as a cell phone or make toast, right? So we're now seeing more digital media being used to show judges a technical point that they might previously gloss over. And so, informed by the text of Cargill, I think that this video, which we've got playing, if you're an audio listener, right? If you're reading Cargill and you're watching this, especially with them 2 lines, you are seeing individual discrete functions of the trigger. You are watching them happen. Like, you can't get around it. And so I think that is very powerful from a litigation perspective. And I don't doubt that this had something to do with the win. I think this was excellent strategy on the part of NAGR. And and they did a side-by-side with a actual machine gun showing, and I mean, if you're making the point, single function of the trigger, like,
yeah, but they didn't cut up the machine gun lower. Scared.
I didn't notice that.
It's a postie, you can just cut it up. Who cares?
Yeah, who cares?
Not a big deal.
Except for the funny letters there.
Yeah, I'm worried about that.
Put them somewhere else. But yeah, if you're talking about functions of the trigger, which Cargill tells us you have to, you can see one of them is chilling, having a nice time. The other one is up to something, right? So I think very, very well done. And as you can see, the president of Rare Breed, that's his happiest face. That's his happiest executive. But yeah, no, so yeah, we freaking won, guys, DeMonico said in a video statement following the judgment. But no, excellent, fantastic news. Fantastic news. Not time for 12 sombrero, Supreme Court on fire, Joe Biden crying video thumbnail. Preliminary, early, fantastic news.
As far as I understand it, right, the scope of the relief was, like, again, I wish the judges would just use a chart and say, like, this is and this isn't what this relief means to make it comprehensible. My understanding, though, is that it's customers of Rare Breed specifically,
right,
members of NAGR, the plaintiffs themselves named in the case, and any customers or people they may have sold it to are given relief. And I think I didn't see any mention, because
it does direct them to correct letters that were sent out,
right?
So, which is funny, right? That's the type of creative legal relief that I just love to see, where the judges are like, "Oh, you wanted to be your own little legislature and make your own little rules. You're gonna fix all that."
ATF is to send letters to everybody that they had previously sent a letter saying this is a machine gun to, saying, "Oops, nope, actually it's legal." Which, I mean, that's a poisoning the well massively, is what that's doing. Because now what are they going to do? Flip it again? Flip it again when it gets appealed?
Ignore our previous letter telling you to ignore the initial letter, but not the third one.
Back to machine gun. We are so tired of sending letters. Our tongue hurts from licking them envelopes.
I don't think they're going to do it. They're gonna seek an emergency stay, but we'll see. We'll see. It would be really funny if they had to do that.
I guess as far as the breadth of the relief, I didn't see any mention of, remember there's a civil case in New York that said these were machine guns.
Right. Well, and so I do think, and the thing that the reason I think the videos were really important is ATF's, like, the whole thing they were hanging their hat on was their zip tie test, and that, like, the New York court, like, really bought that.
Yep.
And I feel like if they didn't have this more informed approach, that would have been hard to get around.
Well, the judge
because-
even addressed the judge in the
Yeah.
Texas case here addressed it because he said that the zip tie has some elasticity to it, and the trigger
Yeah.
will still function. It will kick forward and backwards the same
Right.
way.
And the judge says all this test establishes that the trigger need not move to its most rearward position. It can still reset from sufficient rearward pressure and forward movement. So like basically, but that is something that you have to get a judge to process. And these judges are not like they handle all kinds of different stuff. The district court judges, like one day he'll be doing a copyrights case, the next day he'll be doing like a RICO trial, right? So it's hard to do, and it takes good lawyering, right? So I really want to give them a good thumb to these people. Good thumb. But yeah, so O'Connor's decision applies to the named plaintiffs represented in this case: Patrick Harvey, Spiegel, and James Wheeler, organizational plaintiffs, Nagger and Texas Gun Rights, and downstream customers of the two organizational plaintiffs. So that's what makes the relief very powerful.
It's effective. I mean, knock on not lawyer advice or whatever, the blind squirrel nutting twice a day sort of thing. How does the ATF know who is and isn't a downstream customer if you didn't get a bill of sale when you bought it? And I don't know.
Right. And so, and also like secondhand, third hand, right? Who cares? I think this is, and good lawyers ask for this type of relief. Bad lawyers say just the members of this organization. That's shitty. Good lawyers request that type of relief. Like we requested all current and prospective customers of our organizational plaintiff when we did the Pistol Brace rule. Like this is good lawyering here. I love to see it. And I also just feel the need to heap praise on good things when I see it, because I'm starting to get the reputation of just hating everyone. So I don't know if I'm overcompensating now, but I want to give credit where it's due. What do you think?
I agree, and the fact that downstreamness exists. I mean, there's jurisdictional questions anyway, right? But the fact that in every previous step along the way, he said, but not in this New York case, not anywhere that would be affected by New York's case where they said it was a machine gun. That's not here.
Right.
And the fact that it's unspoken, I think probably, he realizes that he can't just straight up say now also, yeah, nationwide, 100% definitely in New York too. But the fact that he's not saying it means that, if I'm to give you not lawyer advice, if you're caught with one of these things and somebody, for whatever reason, the ATF runs across and you have one of these things now, the situation now is that you can just shut your mouth and not get in trouble. I wouldn't say I'm a member of Nagger. I just shut my mouth, right? Because it's
here. I'll give you free lawyer advice. Free legal advice to everybody watching the show. Don't talk to the fucking cops, no matter what. Ever. No reason. Even if one's your best friend, block them. There's just no reason to ever do it. And you'll be more fine than you would have been otherwise. I promise.
You wouldn't have been able to talk your way out of it before this, but now you don't have to. Just shut
now you don't have to talk your way out of it. You can only talk your way into it.
They ask, where did you get this? And be like, huh?
Huh?
Sorry, I don't know how to answer a question. I didn't learn.
No, you don't have. This is way easier. Am I in custody? I want my lawyer. Right? Like that's people like are embarrassed to say those words because they associate it with like, the sovereign, idiots. But no, the Supreme Court has said those words are magic, right? And so if they answer that you're in custody and you say you want your lawyer, anything else you say after that
and in fact, the only time they're not magic is if you started talking to them and then started saying them. So just from the onset, be like, I don't answer questions. If you want to ask questions, I know a guy who loves answering questions. Do you want his phone number? I call him lawyer.
He loves answering questions, and he also asks a lot.
He gets paid by the word or hour or something. He just loves to fucking talk. He answers questions so good.
Yeah,
he might even bill you.
Question.
You can pay him to talk. Go ahead.
Yep. All right. Cool. You know what else is cool? MAF Corporation. Guys, go to maf-arms.com and be sure to use promotional code. You could use promotional code FUDBusters if you want me to win the war. But there are other people fighting in the war, such as PSR, such as RK Spookware, which is code RK is a spooky boy, such as Suckboy Tony, whose code is Boy Sucker. Then there's several other people. There's Zona. There's I don't even remember who else is involved in the war, but there's a war. So whenever you shop at MAF Arms, just remember whatever discount code you use is contributing to the war effort.
And legally speaking, it makes whatever you buy a weapon of war.
Don't forget, trash is on sale. It's back on the menu, boys. And I just found, we just did I just found some weird shit in the back. We just did a big restock. So what the Sortuts and the source. What else do we got? We got the Hitchhiker. We got all kinds of good and delicious items for sale, on sale. Be sure to check it out and use whatever code you want. So this is the next one. We talked about a couple of weeks ago. Everytown and Chicago did a lawsuit against Glock because
they're readily storable.
Yeah, readily restorable. Convertible.
Restorable and convertible, and then bring a state law action. There was a whole bunch of fucking stupid going on, but not much had happened with that lawsuit. And then with no fanfare at all, dropped it, disappeared. It was
dropped it quietly. Yeah. So we got an article here by Cam Edwards, who I just want to say is, Cam was one of I really started my career with Cam, and I always thought he was great, but ever since he left the NRA and started writing on his own, he has just really stretched his legs, and he can really write. He's really smart. That's something that I think he's not appreciated enough. But so yeah, we've got his article analyzing the situation.
So they now brought the lawsuit and expanded it, and I think they've added new defendants and new plaintiffs maybe, and they've expanded the scopes of some of their things, and then they've sort of introduced new claims from saying that part of the claims that they're now bringing is here's other ways or other proof that this is definitely the way it is, and it's a machine gun or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
It's really ridiculous. They're still trying to conflate the fact that there are full auto Glocks that they're trying to conflate the fact that there is a full auto Glock design, right? The Glock 18.
Right.
With the fact that there are conversion devices for existing Glocks, and trying to say that, well, because there's conversion devices and it's so easy to convert it because Glock designed a full auto model, despite the fact that they actually work in completely different ways. The conversion device doesn't turn it into a G18 at all. The G18's auto steer mechanism is different. We won't get into the details because of YouTube, but it's different, substantially different, actually.
Right. And also the 18's frame is incompatible intentionally.
Yes.
I think it's wider, but it's a different gun. The gun part is a different gun, which is about as good as you can get. It's a lot more than the AR-15 can say. Right. But so yeah, they quietly dropped the lawsuit and then
expanded it pretty significantly. And probably, if I'm to try and read tea leaves here, they did that because getting this dismissed would be bad for them tactically. Right. Because this is sort of one of their apples they would like to snatch. Is right. some manner of, because at the end of the day, right, this doesn't end with Glocks. They would like this for AR-15s, and in fact, I'm somewhat. I guess it's just because of the notoriety of Glocks, which is
the Glock switch, right? Everybody and their sister knows about it.
Because from a standpoint of being readily restored, here I'm going to.
Let's not even go that far. That's 3 feet down a certain rabbit hole. So let's read this part from their press release that Cam has picked out for us. The city of Chicago, alongside Everytown Law and Motley Rice LLC, announced the expansion of the city's first of its kind lawsuit against Glock. I love they're talking about it like it's a new car or something.
Yeah, except they didn't modify their complaint. They just dropped it and made a whole new one, which is kind of funny.
Yeah,
because they're adding parties like this.
There is a mechanism to amend, but against Glock, the manufacturer of the most popular handguns in the United States. 3 additional defendants were named in the complaint submitted yesterday in Cook County Circuit Court. The Austrian Glock entity and part of the U.S. Glock subsidiary, and 2 Chicago area gun stores on Glock's roster of preferred dealers, Eagle Sports Range in Oak Forest and Midwest Sporting Goods in Lyons. The city seeks a court order requiring defendants to cease sales and marketing of easily converted Glock pistols to Chicago civilians, and an order requiring Eagle Sports Range to stop marketing Glocks modified with an autoseer at its location and online. The city also seeks penalties for these actions. The city first filed its lawsuit against Glock in March of this year, and Glock removed the case to federal district court. The city is now filing its expanded lawsuit after voluntarily dismissing the federal court action. This is going straight back to federal court. Like, it certainly is. Because they're going to be posing a federal, like, they may have to make a cross-claim to make it all federal question, right? But this is so stupid. And it is a stupid and aggressive waste of resources and time. I also love how, like, the city of Chicago is bragging. It's like, yeah, no, we found 2 people who were stupid enough to be successful business people in our jurisdiction, and we're trying to fuck them. Like, we found a new and interesting way to fuck them. So that's terrible. And as for the modified Glocks that Eagle Sports has been advertising,
yep,
do not exist. Yes. Like, several years ago, they had advertised that you could rent a Glock 18, which, as we discussed, is not a modified Glock. It's a different gun.
I see. So they had done machine gun rentals, and if it's a Glock 18, then I guess there's a very slim chance they did it with a transferable one, but it was probably a post sample of some sort.
So here's a clip from what Everytown's saying. From the beginning, a major component of Eagle Sports Range business plan has been promoting its full auto experience, which allows customers to rent machine guns and fire them at its indoor range. A range which it has allowed convicted felons to use. As part of its full auto experience, Eagle Sports Range markets the use of a modified Glock at its range. Eagle Sport Range customers can thus demo a modified Glock at the store's range, purchase a semi-automatic Glock from the store's inventory, and then easily and illegally modify their new Glock pistol at home with an autoseer purchased off the internet. And so, yeah, Cam had looked through. The only traces of the full auto experience that he was able to find online was a YouTube video from 2017.
7 years ago. That's what I'm seeing right now, is they don't offer this anymore.
And a press release from that same year announcing that the range had a Glock 18, short barrel M4, AK-47, or a 9mm carbine.
So I mean, they were just trying to do regular machine gun rental range stuff, and I guess Everytown's put so much effort into that. And there's probably some tea leaf reading to do on the fact that this is obviously low effort. So I don't know if it's maybe just to, like, market off of the fact they're doing this, because the level of effort they're putting in, to me, indicates that they're not trying to do something tactical here. Mm-hmm. In consideration of that, plus the fact that they've already stopped the lawsuit once to start it again, it may not be a very tactical thing where they're trying to, like, peel at the cracks of, maybe we can ban stuff by saying that it's convertible or something.
Right. It may literally be just, well, there's also the thing, right? Like, don't attribute to malice. So, but I want to attribute to malice. If I'm attributing to malice, I'm saying they literally just want to be infuriating and make it unattractive to do this. And I'm sure the city of Chicago loves that, especially for, well, no, it's just bizarre because they always blame, like, the neighboring states and the rest of Illinois for their gun problem.
Yep. And
now they're just attacking people who do business within their strict jurisdiction.
I think it's because they need this to stay in. I think it was originally a state court thing, I think. Yeah. And I think they probably
then it got removed.
Need it to stay there. Yeah. Did it get removed?
Yeah. So they filed it in state court. Glock got it removed. So they just dropped the federal court one.
That's why they dropped their lawsuit. They're like,
yeah, that's why and so they filed it again.
Yeah.
It's going to get removed again because there's obvious federal defenses and federal cross claims. Like, I don't think they're going to be able to keep this in state court. I don't know. I don't know how they could, given the significance of.
I feel like now they've got plaintiffs, or rather defendants, in the state. So maybe now they can be like, we have something.
There's still a federal PLCAA question,
right?
And so, like, because there's several ways you can get removed to federal court. Diversity is the easiest way, right? You don't need to prove. You don't need to prove that it's uniquely something a federal court should handle. General question is going to be the best way to go now that they've like dildoed everything together. But let's move on. So this is something I just learned from you. Apparently there were people that were like conspiracying that Mr. Trump's ear did not actually get shooted.
Yeah, that it either there was a variety of conspiracy theories. The most popular version of this theory was that his ear did not get hit by a bullet, because if his ear got hit by a bullet, there would be charring, permanent hearing loss. His ear may have been blown off. His head may have been blown off. He would have a concussion and wouldn't be able to walk or speak or raise his hand above his head or something. Or, some manner of he'd be seriously disfigured if a bullet came that close to his head because of, the shockwave. And there was a secondary version, a supplement to this theory where it's like, well, here's what must have hit his ear, was that a bullet must have struck some obstacle upstream of him, and then the shrapnel hit him. Now, of course, this is
amazingly stupid.
This is made more difficult because of the fact that there was a clean line of sight between him and where the bullet came from. And the initial version of this theory, the reason people thought this is some left-wing pundits within an hour of the shooting happening was like, a bullet hit the teleprompter and he got hit by a fragment of glass from the teleprompter, which
because that somehow makes
what happened fundamentally different. It's still an assassination attempt is what it is. And also you can see the teleprompters. They're not in the line of fire. None of the rounds fired hit a teleprompter, and it was his opening round that clipped Trump.
Right.
So it's just insane to think that it was a three. And his head would have been exploded because of the water and the shockwave effect.
Yeah, because if you ever, and then you light the match and the bullet.
And I think this really speaks to because my initial reaction to this after seeing so many people do this was like, I'm not going to try and fight these people because wow, there's so many idiots. And so I sort of summed it up with this entire thing is because we've got generations of people who will say things like, when am I ever going to use physics? Anyway, the shockwave off of a bullet would explode your ear and char it. Even a very, very, very rude.
Because the bullet is actually it's got a rocket engine behind it as it's going, right? That's how they go so far.
Yeah, it's hot and with combustion and the shockwave because of the thermal
the afterburner of the bullet.
Yeah.
Would have glazed him. So in response to all those people, the FBI is like, no, you shouldn't have got him. FBI says Trump was indeed struck by a bullet.
And interestingly, they put this statement out because they had, there's been a great big mini series of hearings about this whole incident that led to the Secret Service director lady leaving after she said, I didn't do nothing wrong. They kicked her out. And then she stepped down because of extreme pressure. They then had multiple people from the FBI come and testify, including the FBI's director, Christopher Wray, or whatever his name is. And Mr. Christopher Wray.
What?
Nothing.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, was asked by one of them, because one of the Republican Congress lizards was asking questions about, because there were so many conspiracy theories abounding. He was like, okay, you're from the FBI. You've certainly seen the more reports than anybody else. You're the director of the stupid place. Can you confirm that he was hit by a bullet? And he was like, no. And it's like, so FBI's made it so far into this investigation that they have no idea what happened. Great. And so it's somebody unnamed at the FBI put out a press report, I think the night of the night of the day in which that hearing occurred, and was like, it was a bullet or a fragment of a bullet that hit him. And they're probably using that language because if it turns out for somehow it was a jacket separation that happened or something, this way they won't have to eat their own words and be like, oh fuck, now the conspiracy theorists are really gonna start questioning now.
Whenever some projectile strikes a president, they're like, fuck, don't say anything.
We cannot mess this one up.
Don't say anything. We fucked every single one up so far. Yeah, but
so, there have been pictures of it here after the shooting, and it looks like it was not the craziest of grazes. Where I think a week after,
and we're not saying not saying that to be like, oh, but
it was. It was an inch away from history being the timeline split or whatever,
right?
A big one, but
right.
It grazed his ear very barely, so it's understandable maybe why some people are so like, oh, he should have bled more. Like, because if you got
right, and because he's already been seen without his bandage enough, and people were thinking that he would like have this hole in his ear or whatever.
Right,
But
like if your ear got pierced, certainly there would be more damage, a lot more blood. You wouldn't be out of the hospital in the in the next day, and you need a lot more than just like a silly bandage that obviously wasn't taped on by a hospital. But no, certainly not to downplay what had happened, but in all actuality, like
in actuality, the level of contact it had with him was like very like
that. It would only count
if this was IDPA or IPSC or something, people would have been arguing.
Did it break the line? Did it break the line?
Yeah, it's on the line. Right?
In shotgun shooting, they're not lame. They've just been like, "Yep, that's a dead. It's dead.
Yeah, no, you got that bird's done.
It's done. Send the dogs."
but anyway, so the FBI confirmed bullet part hit him. So continue to debate over how this was, where the bullet actually came from, the grassy knoll, and there's actually a 240 gunner. That's my favorite one. It's always a 240.
One of the Secret Service snipers was trying to hit the shooter, but he flinched so bad he clipped Trump. A big flinch. His bipod
the P320 of one of the of detail.
And it spooked the shooter into starting firing.
The Secret Service 320 spooked the shooter who just oh God, no. So that's all great. Whatever. And hey, FBI, since you know so much, do me a favor, just show us a picture of the gun.
Oh my God, yeah, I need to.
Not for clone purposes. I'm not planning on doing any testing or nothing.
He's not planning on like role playing or anything.
Stop. I do want to make the shot. I want to play around with it, but especially given it looks like it was no magnified optics.
And there's been a weird series of information trickle out on the gun where they're like, well, it was a very old DPMS that was bought in Obama era, which are if you go and look, we were digging through their SHOT Show catalog, trying to find a gun that looked relatively similar to the blurry pictures that are available so far.
We couldn't find one.
No such thing. So we're wondering if maybe it's a DPMS lower that's got a different upper on it, because at the time period this rifle was made, most of the rifles DPMS was making were fixed uppers still, because it's hard to imagine, but 10, 15 years ago, carry handle uppers were common and cheap, and no one wanted them. They gave them away because they were shit. And
I literally got my first carry handle upper for free.
Yep.
A Colt A2 upper. Somebody was like, "Oh, I got the old. I just put I put this nice flat top on my gun. I don't know what to do with my old one." I was like, "Can I have it?" And he just gave it to me. That's how it used to be.
$250 for him, which was just hilarious.
Yeah.
But there's something, some information to be gleaned from the rifle. I think the closest we've been able to come is it maybe has Magpul's adjustable stock. My solid conviction from the earliest grainiest picture we had was that it was a Holosun Ames optic, and then every picture that's been better than that we've had, it's like, yes, it sure looks like it. Yes, I don't know why I glean satisfaction from this my ability to look at a grainy picture.
There is an absurd,
that's an Ames, whatever.
Yeah, from 8 pixels. I'm in the pixel knower, but and also just because the gun looks like it was very poorly set up.
Yeah.
So I just I don't know why. I recognize there's something wrong with me, but I actually don't have any regular flat top ARs. And so I'm now hell bent that my first one will be a perfect clone of this one. Is that bad? Am I a bad person?
I think it's interesting, especially because the quote unquote attempts to quote unquote recreate quote unquote the shot thus far have been regular,
completely based on nothing.
Regular gun tube quality, I'll say.
Yeah, and with magnified optics and shit.
Or you're shooting it from 7 yards, and I think Garen Thumb's video maybe came the closest, because they shot it from the right distance to show you that you from even from the accuracy you'd expect from something like an SPR and an actual sub-minute of angle AR, an actual for real one, using match grade ammo even. that hitting an ear consistently, like making that shot on purpose, is impossible. It's just not gonna.
Oh yeah, well yeah. So at least they disproved the like, no, it was planned.
It was a setup, an inside job,
Yeah,
and they were just gonna have him make that shot. Like, yeah, okay, buddy, sure.
yeah. Especially the 30 thou of skin that was touched.
Right.
But anyway, it's so. I also just want it because part of me wants to build that gun just because it seems clear that they don't want me to. Right? Every other time there's a mass casualty event, first thing they do is they're like
the next morning after the original notable Las Vegas, dude, every gun up there had pictures of it all over.
Right. And nobody cloned them because they weren't being all cagey about it. But now they're being cagey about it. I'm like, there's something up. This guy must have min-maxed something.
Like, they didn't want us to know what he got.
Yeah, so now I want it.
A Hollis and Ames mounted too far forward.
Hollis and Ames mounted too. So here's our current theory. My theory is DPMS lower, like dog shittest 18, because we determined it was 18-inch. I think
the best we could tell is we used the greatest pixel measuring systems known to man, and figured out that the barrel with the flash hider on it is like maybe at 20 inches, which leads us to believe it's probably an 18-inch barrel because the flash hider is like 1.7 inches, and given your margin of error for pixel knowing, it's like an 18-inch upper, which certainly was not a thing in the Obama era. Like, okay, yeah, it was on the SPRs, right? But that's about it, and the SPRs were new shit then, which is painful to think about.
So it's got that. It's got an assuredly Chinese free float tube. Well, what we're pretty sure is an Ames, and then what I'm pretty sure is Faiachi grade 45-degree offset irons.
He's got some offset irons on there.
Yeah, and maybe he's onto something. Somehow I doubt it, but we have to find out.
The other thing I want to know is, I mean, I don't know if we have an indication if the rifle when it was bought was a new gun, because all we know so far as I've seen is that it was a DPMS that was bought around that time. So it's possible it's an earlier model DPMS. So there's a non-zero chance. It's like, early on DPMS used cast aluminum blowers instead of forged, and they look distinctive. And I think it would be curious if one of these like rare, like people pay like thousands of dollars for these cast blowers now because they're like, they were bad and they broke back then, but some of them, like the DPMSs were good, but like Hesse used bad ones and stuff. Vulcan Arms used bad ones. It's like getting the bad ones that haven't broke yet have made them collectible. So it's ironic because Hesse finally made something worth something. That's only because it's bad.
There's a few. I've been trying to collect Hesse stuff because it's bad.
Yeah,
and it's harder than you might imagine. And the reason it's hard isn't because there's other Hesse collectors. It's because other people bidding on the stuff don't realize it's a Hesse.
It's a Hesse.
Yeah. So
Romanian AK-74 kit. That's great. I'm bidding that one all the way up. No, it's not. Stop. There isn't a barrel pin in it. They just welded it in place. Stop.
Oh God. So this next link I haven't added into the show notes, so I'm gonna let you introduce it. So I had been working on, for some time, I had been working on reviewing a certain desktop CNC machine, which I don't know if is a bad word on YouTube or whatever, but I was working on a review of the Ghost Gunner, and I had taken the thing, looked at everything, right? And then I was like, okay, I'll have it actually run some of its programs. And well, this happened. So for you video watchers, you can see just during the middle of its program, it just shits out and sprays sparks everywhere. So Ivan, why did you add this?
So I decided to add this because it's funny, and there's a lot to be said about the company that manufactures this machine and the people who own it. But sort of the funny thing here is that like the review had been long coming, and we ended up having to get like a whole separate set of tooling to manage to make it not break end mills and stuff. So it's picky, and it's been difficult to get it to this point. But like this is a relatively unused machine, right?
Right.
And on like the first got it going, it's finally not broken in mill, like straight away run.
Right.
Maybe 15 minutes into it running, the machine just stops, and people noticed there was sparks that came out of the machine. So we go and look inside the machine, like, what the hell happened? Well, it turns out the power supply is mounted inside of the machine down low, where aluminum dust that you're machining, because again, this machine doesn't really take machining bites. Like when you think about machining AR lowers, you usually think about like chips of aluminum.
Yeah.
This makes dust of aluminum. And eventually that dust will build up in places in the power supply that makes it, that lets the pixies and the smoke come out. And sure enough, the pixies and the smoke come out, which at some rate is probably a fire hazard or something like that.
Right.
I wouldn't worry too much about it. But I just thought it was relatively funny because it sort of became a thing on Twitter of people pointing at it and laughing at it.
Well, yeah, and then my favorite thing, and this really warms my cold heart, is how many people were like, "I spent $1,000 on this."
you can buy used Bridgeports and Cincinnati's and actual milling machines for less than this thing costs. Yeah,
and of course the response is, "Oh, but that's too big. I can't fit that in my apartment." And then Wonder Llama comes in, who's a good friend, with the obvious, buy a TAG that's an actual benchtop CNC machine for the same price, and it works. And so listen, I'm not saying this to be a hater or anything. I was saying this as a guy who's passionate about tools and hardware. It's like a hilarious pile of shit.
Do not waste your money on it.
It's amazingly bad. And the fact is, they've sent out a bunch of these for free to different influencers who then just did nothing with them, right? Like they gave one to Sean Heron. He didn't fucking do anything with it. They handed them out to everybody. And no reviews ever came up. I've never seen any actual reviews of the machine itself.
That's not like a handheld, like,
right.
Let's sit there and look at the machine together. Yay! Right. Like an agent of the company working with the quote unquote reviewer.
Right. Yeah. And so to make it clear to you guys, this thing, what a CNC machine needs in order to machine is rigidity.
Yep.
That the rigidity and to a lesser extent torque, right? You need that rigidity so that your tools aren't bouncing around, right? Because like that type of movement, that type of flexibility breaks tools. Because if you're going to cut metal, you need to use tools that are harder than the metal that you're cutting, right? So obviously carbide is like retardedly hard, and if you drop it on, it's so hard that if you drop it on the floor, it's liable to shatter. Yeah. So that's why CNC machines are heavy. That's why Bridgeports are heavy, and even desktop mills are heavy. Because they wind up using, at a bare minimum, cast iron, right? They need that rigidity. You cannot take a super high RPM, low torque motor and then have all of its axes be built on aluminum extrusions and then expect to wind up with a CNC machine that will competently cut aluminum, because you're going to be imparting flex, like that flex that you're going to be imparting to the material you're cutting is then being retained, right? Held rigid by the same material that you are actively wrecking.
Usually,
right there?
Usually in a fairly thin cross section too. Like, you got video of the bed of the thing, the flex cutting in an AR pocket, which is just fantastic. And you see it in the finished quality of the part when it's spat out. And I guess really the lesson there, I guess, for the home gun builders and such is, there's a question of good versus good enough with any of this sort of thing, right? Where do you need clean cuts in order to have a gun work?
Yeah.
No, you don't really. But if you're paying $2,500, that's used good mill money, or step it up to like $3,000, $3,500.
Get your TAG.
With TAGs, you can they are not capable in the way a Bridgeport is in terms of the rates that they can do. But the cuts they can do are nearly identical, right? It can keep up with the Bridgeport in terms of the cuts it can do, with its admittedly smaller collet size. But it can do a lot of work because it's CNC, right? It can interpolate the bigger holes. You don't have to use a big cutter to get those holes anymore because you can interpolate them. So for just a little bit more money, you can have I don't want you to hear me saying
a bed that's made of something ferrous.
Right. I'm not saying it's just a little bit more competent machine. I'm saying it's fundamentally
literally
right? It's like checkers versus like actual real life grand strategy. Like winning a war in the Napoleonic era versus checkers. It's completely different. People's lives are on the line.
But here's the thing that like happened with us, right? So they made the trade-offs that they made. They wanted to use this like drone motor as a spindle motor. They have it spinning 1 billion RPM, and they have an aluminum bed and all aluminum support. So you wind up having to take hilariously light cuts. And then you also have no chip extraction. Your part sitting on its side, and it's designed to make one cut, and it makes that one cut without any extraction, right? So you wind up cutting these little tiny aluminum flakes and then cutting them again and again and again and again. So you wind up making aluminum dust. It's like, and the consistency of the shit is like bizarre.
Unbelievably fine.
It's like if refried beans was metal, right? And as this thing is moving around and doing hard stops, because by the way, also the G code's dog shit, right? So it's just like, it's a bunch of microscopic rapids and the thing's like shaking. This dust gets everywhere. And then because you wanted it to be this square thing, you have your power supply behind a piece of like, you know, like it looks like the RF shielding in a Sega Genesis, right? Like with just a couple screws holding it on. So the dust gets behind the screws, impregnates that power supply, and we're lucky it just blew up on something super non-critical. It could have filled up closer to the caps and like really blew up.
Yeah, because I wondered that, and perhaps this would be a thing to like do further investigation on, is get a couple of extra power supplies, short them out on purpose, and see how much, how close can you get to starting a thermite reaction? Because that much aluminum dust, I've in real life, I've seen an accidental thermite reaction happen. The guy was wearing protective clothing, and if he wasn't, he probably wouldn't be shaped the same way.
No, the funny thing is we were like, when we were doing it, I was actually streaming on Discord so that we could get the footage. It was, I don't know why we decided to do it that way, but supporters on Patreon, you can watch the Discord shit we do. And Ivan was watching, and he's like, I bet you that shit got in the power supply. And I'm like, no, it was probably some bullshit subboard on the side. Of course, we take it apart, and lo and behold, number one, there's a Chinese Meanwell power supply sitting there, the same one out of an Ender 3. Like, very well done for $2,500. And then number two, I pull it out, and you can see on the video, I pull it out, and it just goes.
It's just snow, flakes, and glitter.
The fucker was stuffed. Like, but don't worry, the show will go on. We got a new power supply, and I duct taped it to the outside where it's safer.
No, it's not desktop. You've ruined it.
But I hate that thing. And it has nothing to do with who made it or whatever. I hate it because it's a piece of shit. And the only thing that's worse than a piece of shit is an expensive piece of shit.
An expensive piece of shit made by pedophiles.
Anyway, guys, Patriot Patch Company is the longest sports supported to the show. They was the guy who was originally on the show. So, guys, show him some love. PatriotPatch.co. This is his new thing. He has a lot of trouble getting banned off of social media and stuff because he's so cool. Join the Patch of the Month Club. Right now, we have boating accident. That's it's actually kind of funny. I like this one. Wouldn't this be fun to just have this show up in the mail? That'll boost your day, give you a little serotonin. You can get serotonin without resorting to paying money for mobile games. And if you use promotional code TWIG10, that's TWIG10, you're going to get a discount, special Twig discount. So guys, join up. PatriotPatch.co, longest supporter of the show. Well, guys, that's it for the moment. Thank you all so much for all of your support. And as always, we will see you next time. And on top of that, we just uploaded a new FUD Blasters, a review of the Walther Hammerly Force B1. It's a very interesting little blaster. Go check that out right now. And also, Ivan now has his own Patreon. Ivan, what is your Patreon?
That's a good question. I don't know.
All right, well, look it up. Go find it somewhere. If you go on my Patreon, you'll see it's in the suggested ones. It's the only suggested one I have, so it'll be easy to find.
It might be Ivan Prince Guns. Let me check. It'll be in the show notes.
Yeah, it's the only one on my suggested, so do that. All right, guys, thank you so much, and we will see you next time.